Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to another production of the Junior Golf House. This evening, we have Simon Llewellyn, and Simon is a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He's a graduate of Wake Forest University in their exercise and exercise science program, right? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this past year, Simon has spent his time on the LPGA where he worked for two players all year long, traveling with them every week, caring for their bodies, helping them with their nutrition, making sure they stayed strong. And so Simon has a lot of good stories and some really good information. I'm really excited about you being here tonight. So welcome, Simon. And
Thank you. Appreciate it.
yeah, and it's probably not hard to figure out. This is my son. And so Simon also owns an online business. It's called Total Performance Golf that he's been working at for about 3 years now. And so he services professional athletes, professional golfers, junior golfers, and really anyone, any adult golfer as well.
Mhm.
And so his information's there if you want to look up some of the stuff that he has going on or looking for somebody to help with those. But tonight, I'm going to kind of just go ahead and launch into this discussion real quick. And so tonight we're going to be talking about general fitness for golf and more specifically general fitness for junior golfers. And so Simon, I'm going to kind of put it this way. I'm a parent and I've got a child that is somewhere from 9 to 12 years old, that kind of prepubescent age group. What do I want, or as a parent, what is it that I want to prioritize for their fitness during that time period in their life?
Yeah. So, the first thing I want to say about that is getting your kid in the weight room early is perfectly healthy. I know that's a myth that children, you don't want to lift too early, it'll stunt their growth and all these things. None of the research shows that. Actually, it shows the opposite. And so, just from a general health perspective there, not just athletics, which I'll get into further, you know, don't be afraid to start getting your kid in the weight room early and developing a smart plan, a strength conditioning plan for those kids. And, in terms of golf specifically, and, being an amateur golfer at that age, there's a lot of things you really want to develop. And you can use that time as a window to develop this before you hit puberty. So one thing with, during your prepubescent age or, before puberty, as an athlete, both from boys and girls, you can still get stronger during that time period. You can get about 30 to 40% stronger, and you do this through your nervous system becoming more sensitive and able to produce like electrical action potential, which means force. And so, you do this through resistance training and through athletic training. So that's why I really encourage you getting early in the window so that you can build that foundation. Not only that, there's a mechanical foundation that's really important to start to build up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Learning how to perform a squat, learning how to perform a bench press, learning how to perform these fundamental strength and conditioning and resistance training movements will allow your kid, once they hit puberty, to really explode in their strength training and also establish them for kind of a lifetime of longevity in fitness and strength, whether that takes them down a professional route or not. And so it's a really critical skill for your kids to develop. Alongside
And I
that,
think,
one big, yeah, you go.
yeah, one of the things that I always think about, that area where you talk about that 30% to 40% stronger, I always think about the kids that spend time in gymnastics and how strong they're able to become, and a lot that swim a lot, because those are two pretty pretty rigorous type of sports for that age group, that 10 to 12 age group. And you can really see, you're like, wow, those kids are really strong. They can do a
Yeah,
lot of different
you want
things.
to see? I have actually a funny story about that. When I was in Scotland for the Scottish Women's Open
Yeah.
this past year, I went to a local park, and a lot of these parks have like these outdoor gym sets. And I
Hmm.
went there, and I was just doing pull ups, and I'm kind of a big guy. I weigh about 215 pounds, so I can, I could do about 8 to 10 pull ups a set, but like not, I mean, so like, but they're still, I'm not moving very fast. I'm a pretty big guy and stuff like that. But this little girl that was probably about 10 years old came running in and started doing like muscle ups and spinning around and doing all these pull ups. And her mother comes up to me and she's like, "Sorry about that. I didn't mean for her to get in her way." She does gymnastics and loves all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's out there just doing, I mean, these all these spins and like all these, like a muscle up is like when you do a pull up and you can like push yourself up above the bar.
Yeah.
And like, she's doing
Yeah.
all these things, and I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh, that's super impressive.
I know.
But yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. A lot of
Yeah.
these young athletes, they can develop strength very quickly, and they have the potential to do that. One, because they're young, but two, also because they haven't done, their kid. They haven't done training before. So there's a very fast exponential increase in strength. Yeah. And another thing that's really important that we talk about all the time
Hmm.
is the importance of developing your athletic ability as a youth athlete. As you all know, that golf is a sport that you kind of have to. I mean, a lot of golfers
Hmm.
become a one sport athlete very, very early in their age.
Hmm.
And it has to do with just due to the immense technical skill that golf contains.
Hmm.
The levels of, you have your long game, your short game, your putting, you have a million different variables you have to deal with.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
with that, you can kind of miss out the athletic side, developing the
Yeah.
athlete.
Yeah.
And developing the athlete's incredibly important just because there's so many other variables outside of that are thrown onto a golf course, whether it's different lies, whether it's being in a bunker, whether it's heck, even if wind conditions and you have to have some, crazy wind conditions, you're playing out on the
Hmm.
coast and you're playing down in the Sally as an amateur golfer, woman golfer, and you're doing all these things and you have the wind pumping at you. And so like
Blowing it
there's
like
just a
30. Yeah.
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 You just
Blow
there's a
you
lot
over
of
when you're trying to hit a putt. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. There's a
Yeah.
lot of variables you have to account for. So
Yeah.
being developing an athletic side as long as also a strength conditioning side is incredibly important.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you and I we've talked about when we talk about that athletic side, I mean we do this a lot because in the kind of the fitness world, it's interesting because you have people that are conditioning obviously for different sports, and there are conditioning sport specific things that you do, but at the same time, you and I kind of always say, hey, we want to train the athlete in our programs. And so what we mean by that, and well, that's kind of a generalized term, but what we mean is we're trying to build that foundation that allows that person to move in all of these different directions and to be able to kind of hold their bodies in positions and change direction and to do all those things. And so that was one of the things that you've kind of talked a lot about with me is with these particularly these young junior kids is figuring out ways to make this fun, getting them
Hmm.
out and just getting them running, changing
Yeah,
directions. I mean, we've talked about like just running a route, playing
hmm,
basketball,
yeah, hmm,
doing things that are make your body do all that stuff. And so we live in an age where you do have to specialize so early because athletes are so good so young, but there's so much that's being lost out by not cross training. And so I
yeah,
think both of us would encourage you as a parent to get your child involved in other types of sports, and I
hmm,
mean, you know I know that I have a number of junior golfers I work with, and a lot of them play basketball, and I love that because I think basketball is one of those sports that develop some things that's very advantageous for golf. The ability to jump, the calf strength
hmm,
that's developed from that, the quick movements that have come from that. So I like that. But I mean, anything that can be auxiliary to that, it can kind of help them move using a ladder, right?
yeah. Like doing the ladder drill is great. A big thing like that everyone knows when you say athletic ability. what you mean, but it's
Yeah.
not always very vocalized what you mean.
Yeah.
And I can kind of vocalize what I mean when I say athletic ability is I mean developing muscle memory patterns to just perform general force producing patterns like triple extension that you find in jumping, that you find in through basketball and through sprinting and through these movement patterns, these triple extension
Yeah.
patterns, learning how to shift your weight from your left foot to your right foot and moving laterally. That's another athletic ability that's critical in golf. Look at
Hmm.
Scotty Scheffler, for example. And
Yeah, exactly.
your spatial awareness, your
Hmm.
ability to understand where you are in space. Now, like from like say an NFL perspective, you understand the importance of a football player to understand where they are down the line relative to their defender and how they whether or not they need to spin over their left shoulder or their right shoulder to get the ball and all these in that spatial awareness. But in golf,
Hmm.
think about it think about it in terms of you find yourself in the woods. You have to develop this spatial awareness of how do you manipulate the golf ball around a potential tree branch behind your back or a root in the
Hmm.
ground, and developing these little things. That's what developing feel is all about, is
Hmm.
learning how to create the minute adjustments that that you may not consciously be able to say that you're doing, but your athletic ability and your nervous system is able to receive that information and develop that. And you can
Hmm.
start that at such a young age, and starting that at such a young age when the brain is developing is incredibly
Hmm.
important, because once you develop that muscle memory, you become more coachable. And every coach, if you're an amateur and you want your kid to go play college golf, you want any sport, you want your kids to be coachable.
Yeah.
And
It's the only way to get better.
sometimes being coachable is a skill they just haven't developed,
Hmm.
and it's just you say I want you to get your swing more on plane. Well, maybe they're trying to, they just don't know how to make the adjustment, or they don't have the muscle memory from doing other athletic abilities. Lean back on and be like, okay, I know how to move my body. I know how to trust my body. I
Hmm.
know what it means to actually feel this in space, and then to see myself
Hmm.
in that and to visualize myself in that. Right? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
you know you don't want you don't want your kid walking around like, kind of being lanky, or not lanky, but like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, not having the
Coordinated.
coordinated, not,
Yeah.
you want them to be able to just understand how to use their body. And
Hmm.
strength and conditioning, so resistance training, sprinting, doing all these
Hmm.
things are critical. Even if golf isn't a sprinting sport,
Hmm.
that doesn't matter. And
Hmm.
the movement patterns you learn from golf and what your body learns how to do is incredibly important for golf.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of times when I've talked to people in the past about this, and they're kind of getting started up. I always tell them to go somewhere that you can find someone that can teach your child like Olympic base lifts, okay, or the movement patterns for those lifts. You know, go somewhere where somebody can observe how your child squats, and can they squat properly, or are their knees falling in, or can they're able to hold their structure. And if they do that, well, then someone that can help them learn how to do that properly and hold their body in the
Yeah.
positions that they need to hold in. And
Mhm.
that's kind of where you start. That's what you're looking at. It's not about putting a load on a child. It's about. I had another player that kind of got involved with this, a young girl at the age of 11, and it was really cool because she was going to this place and she was kind of going. They taught Olympic lifts. They worked on these movements. And she was doing this with a stick on her back, with no weight on, or with a junior barbell that weighs 10 pounds, but she's learning how to move with these things and learning all of these aspects of her body, and putting it in these powerful positions. And that's just really important for golfing is to be able to hold your body in its posture throughout the whole swing, to be able to hit consistent golf shots. I mean,
Yeah.
I see this all the time, even with my professionals. I mean, some of the time the problem isn't that they can't swing. They don't have control, like you're saying, and they
Hmm.
don't have enough mastery and strength in their nervous systems to be able to like do what is necessary for the club to move on this pattern and stay on this pattern for the entire
Hmm.
time. So,
Yeah. So yeah, I was kind of going off of your thought a little
yeah,
bit more. Is muscle builds consistency,
yeah,
developing your athletic base and your fundamental strength and conditioning principles develops consistency in golf because through developing muscle, through developing greater nervous system control and adaptations, you're able to learn how to manipulate your body and control your body in a way that a sport like golf and a movement like a golf swing that requires so much force,
hmm,
it's an incredibly, it has a huge load on your spine and on your
yeah,
back through in both compression
yeah,
and shear force and all these force vectors
yeah,
and
yeah,
and having the strength to stop your arms and your follow through where you want to, and having the strength is really important. I mean,
yeah,
you look at, like, I always applaud the strongest golfers that you see. Like, you see the highlights of Tiger, you see the highlights of Rory, you see the highlights of Bryson. Like, people are amazed by how far they hit the golf ball. What amazes me is how hard they swing and how they're able to keep themselves balanced. To be honest with you, I know
yes,
that's a
yeah,
weird thing, but
yeah,
like that's what amazes me the most.
yeah,
and like how consistent they can be.
yeah,
It's so, because that's where their true strength is
yeah,
demonstrated.
yeah,
Like you see
yeah,
there's a lot of young amateur guys that, college guys and 18-year-old guys who can hit the heck out of the golf ball, but there's just they haven't developed the strength that those men have developed
yeah,
to hit it
yeah,
in the fairway, how many times, 15, 14 times in a
yeah,
round or whatever.
yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking about when you were talking about that, I was just thinking about like those force vectors and how the feet roll and how much movement there is in good golf swings. And so learning how to move back and forth, like you're saying, left and right,
Mm,
and learning how to be on your toes and on your heels and on the balls of your feet and learning how to move things around. I mean, it is about balance. Your body's not going to let you swing very fast if you can't stay in balance. So
yeah.
that's a key to like speed, as you were just referring to with Tiger and Bryson, and is these guys can move very fast, but also maintain their balance in order to stop the
Hmm.
golf club, and that allows the golf club to speed up and
Hmm.
break and go faster. So
Yeah.
so just so I want to kind of highlight. So let's just say in this kind of 9 to 12 or this prepubescent age group, you can begin to build strength. I mean,
Hmm.
prioritize learning how to move well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, making sure
Yes.
you can have those movements. The second thing would
Yeah.
be move a lot, do a lot
Hmm.
of different things, like learn that spatial awareness, build that in, sprint, cut, all of those different things that's required.
Hmm.
I mean, I grew up two things I mean I love to do was I rode a bike and I jump ramps all the time. So I'm in the woods doing all this stuff, spending my day on a bike, doing that, cutting,
Yeah.
jumping jumps, learning how to control myself in the air. Second thing I love to do was the diving board. And I would jump off a diving board, I'd do flips, I would do all these things. And all of that stuff helped me as I got older, and I was playing baseball and football to learn how to, control my body and like you said, learn how to take a hit or learn how to get down and get out of the way and just the movement stuff. And so that's to me in that early age group, that's that athleticism that you're trying to help your child develop early as the foundation for what's to come. So,
Hmm.
Simon, why don't you tell us a little bit about now, what once the puberty kind of kicks in, What can happen then if we've built that foundation in place, right? And if they haven't built that foundation in place, why don't you say something about that? Again, what do we need to do in order to get to the point to where we can begin to really utilize those hormones that are pumping into our body that help us to grow and to build muscle? So, kind of those two
Yeah.
aspects is like, okay, you've done this, now you can go. But if you haven't done this and you're 16 years old and you're just the first time going to the gym, what do you need to do?
Well, I think, you know, if you haven't, I can start. If you haven't been doing this, you're just gonna have to play catch up. You're
Hmm.
going to have to develop those movement patterns, and you're going to have to do it at an age where now you're also worried about getting recruited. And it's
Yeah.
just an extra stressor that you're going to have to worry about because you're going to go into a college program, and I mean most college programs now they have a strength and conditioning coach, and
Hmm.
the more developed and the more down the road, and it's just been more recent in college golf, is the respect for strength and conditioning has
Hmm.
continuously grown and will continuously grow. I think it'll become just as important as it is in any other sport. And so because of that, I really think if you want to have a competitive advantage, and you want to not only have a competitive advantage but also help your team more, getting in the weight room early and knowing and being able to come in your freshman year competent in that arena will really help you
Hmm.
and help you be a better teammate, help you be a better player, give you a greater level. Your coaches will probably give you a greater level of respect, and all these things that are really important to just being a good teammate. Alongside that, if you're not starting until you're 16, right? Like you can still, I mean, you can still develop the same patterns that someone beforehand was doing, obviously. And so, like, you don't need to be super, you don't need to be like, if you're 16-year-olds and you're listening to this, you don't need to be like, oh, I'm doomed. I shouldn't even try.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like you should, be confident in the fact that you're still, a 16-year-old, and you have these huge amount, whether you're, a girl or a boy, if you're a guy, you have a lot of testosterone. If you're a girl, you have a lot of estrogen. A lot of these will still develop, will give you the ability to develop muscle mass and develop, whether you're a boy or a girl. Both these hormones are anabolic, which means they build mass, or they develop muscle. And uh, and so don't think it's the end of the world if you are starting late. Just
Yeah.
know that you should start,
Right. Right.
and
And the
then
key to starting, what would you say? Just, what would you say is important if they are starting at that 16 mark? What would you prioritize for them? Movement patterns first? I mean,
the first thing
what would
I
you?
would develop for them is at that age, they're probably pretty competent in their golf skills,
Yeah.
right? Like they know how to hit a golf ball pretty well. Their swing's probably. I really think developing muscle mass is should be their first priority.
Okay.
Getting size, because those adaptations last a lot longer down the road, and you
Hmm.
want to start developing those as soon as possible because through focusing on that, right, you're going to be able to build, you know, the engine of a Lamborghini for your body, for example.
Hmm.
You're going to build this engine, and you're going to build this body that then can use the nervous system adaptations that you can still develop, and that you will still continually develop even if you started this training before puberty. You can still develop those down the road.
Hmm.
But I really think even both for, this is the time once you get through puberty, whether you've been
Hmm.
training beforehand or not,
Hmm.
is the time for you to really put on muscle mass and develop your armor, because that's
Hmm.
what muscle is. Muscle gives you the potential to develop more force. Obviously, you increase the size of your muscle fibers, they're able to produce more force when they contract. But not only that, they become a protective mechanism against stressors. So like against the uncertainty of travel days, the the never ending stress of a school load, the never ending stress of trying to practice a lot to try to become a better golfer because
Yeah.
you have a target school you want to go to, and I need to get this good, I need to shoot this scoring average. Developing muscle mass can help you manage all of that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it becomes it absorbs cortisol. It absorbs, from a hormone perspective, it absorbs cortisol. It helps manage your glucose levels. It manage all of these erroneous or potentially erroneous inner body physiological systems that can go awry when you're stressed out and you're in a psychological state of anxiety or these things. So so just from that perspective, from purely a strength and conditioning and athletic perspective, it's critical to develop muscle mass because, like I was talking about earlier, you don't want to put the engine of a Lamborghini in the body of a Prius. You want to be able to have the body that that can produce a lot of force. And
Hmm.
then what you do is you do this powering, this speed training. Once you develop this body,
Hmm.
you do this power and this speed training that is able to utilize all of the force that you have the ability to create. For example,
Hmm.
I always like to talk about this, but there's this say this is your force ceiling. This is how much force you can reduce. In the a golf swing is about 1.2 to 2 seconds. Like that's about the length of an average golf swing. And in that time you can produce about this much of your max force, right? The first thing you want to do is you want to be able to develop the muscle mass so that you can have this window to be all the way up here. And
Hmm.
gradually from a like a relative point, while this increases, this will still slowly increase. This
Hmm.
will increase with it. But you want to be able to develop this high level of force. So when you start doing power and speed training, your
Hmm.
max can be up here rather
Hmm.
than be up here. Once you
Hmm.
start inching your ability to produce force under that specific time, once you start trying to develop that, it'll start slowly increasing up. And so
Hmm.
I encourage once you're out of puberty, and once puberty hits, this is your time to really try to develop muscle mass and develop a foundation that will allow you to play golf for as long as you want, allow you to be
Hmm.
healthy for as long as you want, and just both in athletics and out of athletics, that's the time,
Hmm.
that's the window to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's an important point. One of the things I have observed over the number of years, is, and like you said, I think this is changing. I think we're going to see this change. Golfers traditionally have not been in the weight room, and then when they go in the weight room, their workouts are more mobility, flexibility, somewhat based
Mm-hmm.
workouts. And especially for kids, I mean, the majority of them are hypermobile anyway. I mean, you might have that son or daughter that's like super tight, and they may not be, and they may need some of mobility in some of those areas. I get that, but you do learn mobility, and through strength training. You develop mobility through strength training, and that's a big point that you always try to make. That
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
you talk about strength being in these deep ranges of movement, and that's where you want to develop it. And so this time period is important to just get as strong as you can. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and
Yeah.
there's a direct correlation. People used to say, you putt, you drive for show and you putt for dough. Well, the stats, I mean, anybody's stat program right now will show you that there is a direct correlation between driving distance and the money list. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the further driving distance or being longer is number one to shooting lower scores. Now, you still got to hit wedges in there, you still got to putt, but that's number one on the list for lowering scores. So, getting longer is directly related to being stronger. So, that's kind of what you're saying here.
Yeah.
And so, both of us we're we're super invested into learning how to move properly in the weight room, being careful,
Hmm.
being smart, you know, and you really can't push weight until you learn how to do that.
Hmm.
So I mean, prioritizing good form is really important, but also once that's in place and it's comfortable, you gotta kind of push some weight at that point, right, Simon?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, there are different ways to build strength and to do those things. But for the most part, you know, what type of, when you're talking about building real mass, muscle mass, what type of rep ranges and percentages just to kind of throw out there, or you're talking about getting to a point to where you can live in at times?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. I do want to before I go to that question, I do
Yeah.
also want to just highlight something you said is like I or add to what you said is I also think like not only is the strength related to distance, but also when it comes to short game, I really think developing athletic ability and is your
Hmm.
athletic ability is really critical to developing feel and creativity around the
Yes.
greens and to understanding speed control and all these things, you know.
Yeah. Good
Um,
point. Yep.
but you know, I'll get back to kind of what you said. But what I mean by like developing muscle mass, kind of at that age, is first thing you do have to evaluate whether you're experienced or not. But let's say we're talking about someone who's maybe more of an experienced lifter and they know how to perform the movement patterns. I mean, once I know that I can trust that an athlete knows what they're doing in the weight room and they're in that age where they can really start to develop muscle mass. I mean, I'm starting it's called muscle hypertrophy training, which is the technical term. But what it basically means is you're pushing your muscles to a level of fatigue that they want to then that they break down and they can regrow. Now this tends to traditionally be the traditional ranges are around six to about 12 repetitions is the range, and the intensity tends to be close to failure. And I know that may be an ambiguous term for somebody who doesn't really know what that means, but what that really just means is it's telling you that you're trying to go in that repetition and that set with the specific weight, and the weight is that specific weight that is heavy enough to where by the time you get to that 10th rep, you can barely do that 10th rep, or you
Right.
may not be able to do it. And
Right.
and that's really pushing your body really hard to do that.
Hmm.
And you can also and then like strength training tends to be below the six repetition range, and like from like a percentage standpoint, like let's say you have a squat percentage and your one rep squat is 100 pounds. We'll just do easy math. Like you would do 80% of that. So like you do like 80% of your one rep max. And then or higher than that. And there's there's more to that obviously, but like from very
Yeah.
broadly, that's
Yeah.
what that's
Generally
the kind
speaking.
of
Right.
difference. But you can still develop, especially if you're in your that age, you're going to if you do anything, you're going to get stronger exponentially quickly.
Hmm.
You're going to explode when it comes to getting stronger and
Hmm.
becoming a more physical athlete.
I like what you said. If you do anything,
Yeah,
I mean, like it's really that. If you can be consistent and do something regularly, you're going to get stronger in the weight
yeah.
room.
And
You
consistent is a
know.
huge
Yes.
thing. Consistency,
Yes.
so, and I mean, that's just everything in life, right? But consistency is critical to being in the weight room. You can have a bad plan. You can have a bad strength conditioning plan and be
Yeah.
consistent and grow mass better than having a perfect strength and conditioning plan, but only doing it every other week.
Right. Yeah.
Like there's these principles to maximizing what you're doing in the weight room and all these things, and so that you can squeeze every percentage out of your time. But if you're just not consistent, you're just not going to even. It's just not even worth doing it
Right.
if you can't be consistent. And
Yeah. So,
if you're
yeah.
limited by your ability and consistency, it means you can only lift 30 minutes. every 3 days, I would
Yeah.
rather lifting those 30 minutes would do wonders more for you than just choosing not to, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
because and you may not think, oh, it's only 30 minutes, I don't have enough time. That you would develop way more muscle mass by doing that consistently than choosing not to.
Yeah. Well, I love that because like, so you would you like what would you prescribe? Would you prescribe for a program 3 days a week? I mean, is that what you like? I mean, like kind of a 3 day a week program
Yeah,
for each week where you're, at least you're in that weight room 3 days a week.
yeah, with my amateurs, I tend to like to prescribe with kind of every athlete. I tend to
Yeah.
prescribe a 3 day a week full body workout. It tends to be, I mean, from a recovery perspective, it allows it gives you time for all of your body to recover.
Right.
It works everything, which is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And it also, as someone who's a like they're a technical sport athlete, right? Like they're like you do this with like baseball players, you do this with basketball players, golfers, like sports that have a lot of technical skill. You know, you tend to like doing a 3 day a week is good because you can get really strong and you can get really fast and you can develop all these skills, but all
Hmm.
these physical attributes, but it gives you the time to get better at your sport as well, and
Yeah.
or like to
Yeah.
develop the skills of your sport because those are incredibly important as well, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's great, Simon. I mean, I hope. Let me encourage you to do a couple of things. One is this is going to go up. Please reach out to us through Instagram. You'll see Simon's. That's his email address. Not his email address, but
Yeah, my website's
that's your
down there.
website right there. That's my email address. Simon, what is your email address? Can you? What is it?
Yeah, my email address is my name, so Simon Llewellyn, and then training@gmail.com.
Right.
It didn't
And
fit in the little thing down there, so
yeah,
I
I know.
didn't have
Well,
a
can
website to say.
they? Is it on your website?
Yeah, and
They
it's
can
on
get in
my
touch with you
website. You can go
there.
on my website and go to contact me. You can fill out a form.
Yeah,
Or you can just email me if you want to just email
yeah.
me.
Well,
That's
that's
probably easier. So I would just do
yeah,
that, and you can
yeah.
contact me that way, and we can talk about more about what you're looking for, or just
Right.
whatever. I'd be happy to
Yeah.
help.
And so as we talk about the golf house, I mean, Simon's one of our contributors to the golf house. And if you're on the golf house website, you will also find a link to Simon there and can ask him some questions. And I know he's happy to help answer any questions like we all are in this area. I mean, that's why we're here. We do offer services, but at the same time, we can help you think through if you want to find somebody more locally to help you with those areas. But I hope this is helpful. Simon and I are going to come back at you, and like I said, we got a lot of different things we want to talk about. One of the things that Simon I think is huge importance. We just touched on it tonight with consistency is training throughout the whole year, and
Yeah,
how do you program that year? When you're playing, let's say you're playing 20 events that over between spring, summer, fall. How do you do that? And then how do you keep training when you get really busy in those summers? And so I think we'll kind of mesh that one with a little window into what it looks like to do that on the LPG, and then
yeah,
maybe spin off of that. You can kind of talk about how they do it, and then spin off of that with some more ideas about how do we do that, even through a junior tour schedule. Because a lot of times you get into playing 3 weeks in a row, and I can't get to the gym, I can't get here, and you lose that consistency. And that's a time that you need to kind of keep going. Now, it may not be at the same intensity level, maybe you're in a more maintenance mode, but that's something I really think we're going to talk about. So I think that should be our next one, Simon, that
yeah.
we
I
kind of
agree.
put out there and just share a little bit of information about. So,
Yeah, for sure.
like we said, and like Simon said, hey, look, this is general information. I mean, that's what we're trying to provide for you here at the Golf House. And we're happy to delve more deeply into specific things with you to try to help you maximize your son or daughter's fitness area as well. So thank you for being with us tonight, Si. Thanks, brother.
Yep.
It's
Thank
good to
you.
see you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you as
All
well.
right. Have a good evening, and we'll
Yeah,
talk soon.
you as
Okay.
well.
All
Yes.
right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you
Mhm.
all.